finding a tool like that can work well, it's always good to, on occasion, if you can have people just side by side at a machine. In the XP world, there's a practice called pair programming, where, in essence, you are having continuous code inspection, you could say, by placing two people together. But I think organizations, whether you utilize SmartBear, whether you have people right there, the main thing SmartBear facilitates for you is the fact that you can have people in different locations doing the reviews. You have a way to capture any input and track that. So, that helps out from that perspective. There is also in IBM land, part of the projects that they've been building under Rational is the Jazz project. And that project will bring together some better collaboration facilities also. But doing that, I think, less formal, SmartBear, pair programming style of working together, again, has been shown to be very effective in driving out defects. And again, like I said, and I think static analysis can do the same thing. Anytime you know your work is going to be measured, looked at by somebody else, etc., you will be more careful about what you do.
Great. Okay, so I've got a question for me. The question is, can a stat solver be used to analyze concurrent programs? The answer is yes. In fact, we have concurrency checking in our product today, and we leverage the stat solver to, again, help eliminate the false pass even in concurrent programs. So that is something that we've got. Another question for me I'll take quickly, and then we got another one for Tom. Does the SAT technique reduce the need for unit tests? And, well, the short answer is no. Of course, you still need to do unit testing. You still need to do your full system test. But what it means is that we're going to be weeding out more of the problems early in the process, so that if you have a great unit test suite and you have a great system test suite, they're more likely to pass on a regular basis once you start sending the code there. So they're more on they end up being more on the validation, making sure that it's working correctly, and less on the side of uncovering the defect in the unit test or uncovering the defect in the system test. All right, another question for Tom. Is there value in capturing data from informal peer reviews? And then the follow-on is, how do we feed back to the development activities to improve initial quality?
Yeah, so one of the things that you see in Agile, so in Scrum this occurs, in XP this occurs, and I see a push in here about what the Scrum stand for. Scrum doesn't stand for anything. Scrum is something that happens in rugby when all of the players come together and kind of lock heads and try and move the ball forward, and then you tend to break up into a sprint, although you wouldn't call it a sprint in a rugby game, but beyond that there's no name. But after every iteration, one of the things you want to do is have a post-mortem. You want to look at, what did we learn? What went well? What didn't go well? How can we improve the next time? When I'm looking at software metrics, when I'm looking at unit tests, when I'm, all of these various pieces of information should give me some guidance about, maybe where do I need to spend some more time on training for people? Where do I, what are some things we need to think about in the way that we're designing our code, and how can we do it better the next time? So, beyond the fact of chasing out defects, or beyond the fact of, in peer review, I'm looking for, do I see common things occurring all the time? Well, if I do, and there are things that I can correct, how can I correct those things? So all of these things have kind of a dual nature purpose. On one hand, you can get that first level benefit, which is, either locating a defect and finding it, fixing it, or being more on schedule, whatever it might be. But the other is to then take that and to learn from that, and to constantly be feeding back. So we learn something at one level of the process. If there's something I can do earlier in the chain, in many ways, I think, if you can develop an informal-ish way of being Six Sigma-like, what is the thing that's driving the error? Do I have common types of errors? How can I remove those from the system? That's what we're all about.
Great. Another question for me. Are there any particular difficulties in the static analysis of object-oriented software, for example, Java, and I'll add C++ to that? And the answer is yes, there are different challenges. For example, in C++, templates are a challenge in terms of being able to handle them and understand, instantiations and how that works. Another challenge has to do with method resolution and understanding, from a virtual method standpoint, where exactly, and I mentioned this before, but we want to analyze the whole code base all at once. And so when you have virtual methods, it's dependent on the runtime type of an object as to whether or not, which method gets called. And so there needs to be heft in the analysis to try to do some of that type inference statically to figure out. And we do have that technology baked into our product to handle those interprocedural cases correctly. So there are absolutely some additional difficulties that happen, but all part of playing the static analysis game is paying attention to those. Another question for Tom. You're an Agile team, but inside of a waterfall environment. Is it possible to remain Agile?
It is. You can have limitations as far as the amount of benefit that you see. Actually, we see a lot of organizations that pick up what are Agile pieces and they really use them as a waterfall. If you look at the rational unified process, the idea is it's supposed to be an iterative style process, somewhat agile, and it's become more agile, but in many ways the way most people implement it is more of a waterfall. What will happen is that, or what I think is more important, is that you may be agile, or, well, say quote-unquote agile, and you're in a waterfall. The core thing, I think the thing that's more important is picking up the best practices and patterns. So agile on one hand, how can I move to these small iterations, work in small drops, be more tied together with the business user, etc. You may not be able to get all of those things because of the way your organization is set up. However, if you pick up the practices of, say, test-driven development, or you do pair programming / code review, those type of things will always provide the benefits that they provide back to you. So you'll see kind of a mixture depending on what are the practices you've picked up and how you do it.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. And obviously, as you can see there, my email is on this slide. Feel free to email me if you have specific questions on the Coverity side of things. One last question that I will answer quickly is, are the slides available somewhere? We will be posting this entire webinar on our website, so you'll have access to it to refer to later or to point other folks to if you want to share the content that was presented here today. So thank you very much to all of our audience members for listening in. I hope you've learned a little bit about Agile development as well as how static analysis can be applied to make your quality better. And of course, thank you to Tom for his thoughts and his time here today. And we appreciate it. So take care, everyone. Goodbye.